Welcome in to News and Views with Tom Lamprecht. The stories you've heard and the ones you need to hear.
Wokeism is on the ropes. Let's put it out of its misery in 22.
I think we're going to be in real trouble. I believe that Democrats are going to lose.
Large numbers coming in down here at the border.
If he lifts Title 42, it will be catastrophic for the United States.
What is happening in Ukraine?
Your life, your values, your voice. This is News and Views with Tom Lamprecht on Talk 96.3 and 103.7.
All right, welcome in. Tom, Benny, and Clark, and you. Lots to talk about today. Big news. Elon Musk pulled it off. He's purchased Twitter and is going private. So he'll be a sole owner. He and the bank will own it. Paid $54.20 per share. What was it trading for just a couple of weeks ago? Like 38 or something like that?
In January, it was in the 30s, but then it's been creeping up for the last 2 or 3 weeks from the
after he said he was
from
interested.
the lower 40s on up to I think it closed Friday at 52. I think.
Well, he's paying $54.20, and said I guess today was about a 6% increase. Was that right? Mm-hmm. Something like that. So anyway, it's interesting too that Trump has initially said. We took a little poll here before we went on the air, but Trump has initially said that he will not return to Twitter, even though Elon Musk has purchased the platform and said, "Hey, we're gonna be a free speech organization." Twitter is now, and of course, all the wokies that are supposed to be all about tolerance and free speech are all up in arms. But Trump has said he is not going to use Twitter; he is going to use his own Truth Social. But I think the consensus here at News and Views is Trump will be back on Twitter. He's pretty much has to be, I would think. If he's serious about running for re-election, it's too much of a opportunity to reach millions of people. And my hunch is he'll be back on there.
It's just too many followers. I mean, it's bottom line is you got to go where the customers are, so to speak.
And exactly. But 3 cheers for Elon Musk. I don't think he's a conservative. I think he's a libertarian. And I'm a libertarian on a lot of issues. Some things I disagree with. But it is interesting. And we were talking before we went on the air. Liberalism, in the traditional sense, ought to look like a libertarian. That, hey, you ought to be able to say whatever you want to say. Now, see, I somewhat disagree with that. I think common sense kicks in, and I'd be a libertarian, but I'm not going to say everything I want to say when in inappropriate times. But a libertarian and a liberal ought to be a libertarian, but they're not. They're totally shutting down free speech. As long as you agree with me, you can say anything you want. That's where today's progressive is.
I mean, that's it. And you would think, during this time of Twitter banning Donald Trump and others, anyone that wasn't, buying everything that Fauci said, you would think people like the American Civil Liberties Union, which you think that's what they stand for.
Right.
But they have proven, particularly the last 20 years, they stand for civil liberties when it's what they believe in.
Exactly. G.K. Butterfield has endorsed Don Davis in the 1st Congressional District race for the Democrats in their primary. This from the News and Observer. Butterfield chose Davis among the 4 Democrat candidates vying for the party's nomination. I think it's actually more than 4, but there's 4 that actually look like they have a shot at it. Of course, the big 2 are Erica Smith, who ran for U.S. Senate at one point, didn't she?
She did. She ran, I think, when Tom Tillis.
I think so. Last time around, yeah. And but she was running for Butterfield's seat. She has actually raised a lot more money than Don Davis has, probably twice as much. I think she's up close to $800,000. Don Davis is about $450,000. But Butterfield said, "Hey, I like Davis. I've served for 18 years. I know what the people of the 1st District expect from the representatives. I'm confident Don Davis will fight to protect the voting rights." Blah 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 blah. And Don Davis said that it's extremely humbling that Butterfield would think enough to support our campaign. I don't know Don Davis personally, but I've heard a lot of people say, now he's a liberal, and we would agree on probably less than 5% of major issues. But I've heard people say that Don Davis is an extremely kind gentleman.
I think he is. I know him fairly well through my various things around town and dealing with him on some things. I think Don, and I mean, Don can call in and disagree with me, but I don't know what Don really is, other than Don will be what he needs to be when he needs to be it. Yeah, I just
lick his finger, stick it in the air, and see which way the political winds are blowing.
And the fact of the matter is, he may be the perfect person to be endorsed by Butterfield, because Butterfield has done nothing for his district. Yeah. Nothing other than, get his name on a building, like the building here in Greenville and that type of thing. But Don Davis is going to do whatever the powers of the Democrat Party tell him to do, exactly the way he has performed in the North Carolina Senate.
Well, I think
plain and simple.
I think. Well, and by the way, so there's Erica Smith, Don Davis, Julian Bishop Sr., and Jason Spriggs. I guess they're the top four. I think there's actually a couple of other Democrats. I don't know who they are. I don't know the names. I think there's 8 Republicans running.
There's a slew of them. Yeah.
And interestingly, I had a chance to talk to Sandy Robertson, who is the mayor of Rocky Mount. And on Friday night, we were at an event, and he was there, and we're talking to him. And he recognizes that running as a Republican in a district that leans Democrat. Now, it used to be likely Democrat. It is now, and in fact, Larry Sabato on Friday said, you know what, I'm going to back off from saying it's likely Democrat to it is leaning Democrat. And I talked to Sandy Robertson about that and said, it's not an easy win. And he said, no, it's not. He said, but I've done my homework. I've done my due diligence. And I think, he said, I wouldn't run if I thought this was an impossible task. To which I would say, if you're going to win in a district that leans Democrat, and by the way, it used to be at one point under Butterfield, it was a minority-majority district. I don't think it's that way now. It leans Democrat, but I think it's majority white in District 1 now. But if there's ever going to be a year that you would win in a district that leans Democrat, it would be, and as a Republican, it would be in 2022.
Yeah, and then it makes me think that, midterms, when there's not a presidential election, what is going to get Democrat voters to get excited to get out and vote?
Nothing.
And
nothing.
They really, what can the party, hang their hat on for the last 2 years of the Biden administration? I don't know. I think if there's ever, I agree, if there's ever a time, this could be the time. The funny thing to me, there were some comments about G.K. Butterfield making such a late endorsement on this. This is just purely, my conspiracy theorist working. I believe he was just sitting back and said, you know what? Maybe at the last minute I'll announce I'm not going anywhere and I'll be a write-in and I can win. And maybe he finally decided, nah, I better not do that.
Well, how old's Butterfield? He's like 70s,
he's
72,
mid-70s,
73?
I think.
Yeah, okay.
Early to mid-70s.
After traveling back and forth from District 1 to Washington, D.C.
He's been there long enough.
How many years?
Yeah. He's been there long enough to get a pension, so he's got a couple of pensions going for him now, because I think he was a judge before that.
He was. So this morning, the United States Supreme Court heard oral arguments in a case surrounding a former high school football coach who was fired by a Washington school district for kneeling and praying on the field after games. Former coach Joe Kennedy's legal fight with the Bremerton, Washington School District began in 2015, and the case has briefly reached the Supreme Court in 2019. The justices declined to take it then. I remember talking about this at the time, and we said it doesn't mean it's over. It just means they weren't going to take it then. It needed to go through the court system, which it did, and now the justices have taken it up. Oral argument was earlier today. What was interesting, one of the things that the liberals in the court, I took the time to listen to the oral arguments, and one of the things that liberals in the court seem to lean on is the idea that this coach praying in front of these students would pressure the students to pray with him. Otherwise, they might not get playing time. He taught math along with coaching. They might not get a good grade in the math class. In other words, they were really leaning hard that this is coercion. And I thought to myself, wait a minute. You talk about coercion. How many students in high school and college know that their teacher is a progressive?
Right.
A big-time progressive, and they make no bones about it. I mean, we've had stories where teachers get up in the classroom and saying, if your parents voted for Donald Trump, they're idiots. But and these students know, if I don't kowtow to my teacher's progressive ideology, there's no way I can get an A in this class. Now, you talk about coercion. Where are liberals when it comes to that? I mean, it's not to be found. The attorney for the school district inferred that this coach praying before students was potentially disastrous. And he said, think about this. He said, to the Chief Justice, to the justices in the Supreme Court, he said, and some of these students were as young as 14, and this coach was praying in front of them. I thought, my gosh, this is what we're alarmed at. We have a coach. I mean, we ought to be lionizing this guy for praying in front of the students. And this guy tried to make a big... I mean, how many times have we talked this year about 14-year-olds being exposed to pornography in the public school libraries?
Oh, I hate to laugh, but you said 13 or 14-year-olds. I mean, they want 4-year-olds to be able to go to a doctor and say
have
they
their
want
parents,
yeah.
Have their Uncle Willie chopped off.
Oh, my.
I'm glad you said that. But I mean, really, just think about their argument and then the arguments they make on something else, where parents shouldn't even have a choice of their 4-year-old going to a doctor and saying, hey, they want their sex changed, but they're going to be influenced as a 14-year-old.
Or take a minor out to get an abortion.
Yeah.
Without and none of this with their parents' approval.
And I didn't listen to the arguments today, but I did just before I walked in. I looked at someone's summary of what was talked about today, and one of the conservative justices, you may know which one, basically said, what about if a teacher's talking climate change or something?
Or kneeling on the side. Clarence Thomas, I know, asked, what about kneeling on the sidelines? What if a coach did that during the game? Is that not influencing the children? Would the government be okay with that? To that, the attorney said, well, I don't think that's ever happened before. And I thought, you got to be kidding me. In a school district, you're going to tell me that's never. I mean, maybe it hasn't, but I just thought the whole thing was. Well, let me put it this way. The good news is I think the justices are going to come out. I don't know that they will give carte blanche to the coach, but I think they will come out and say, look, if this coach wants to go out and pray by himself in the 50-yard line after it is over and is not coercing any of the students to come with him, he can do whatever he wants. And that's appropriate. And, one of the justices, I think it was one of the conservative justices said, well, what if the teacher was Roman Catholic and went to an Ash Wednesday service and had the ashes put on their forehead and, the mark of the cross on their forehead with ashes and went back to school? Is that coercion? Does the student need? I mean, the whole thing has gotten so bizarre and such a double standard.
Yeah, and for the last 2 years when there has been school in session, you have these union educators in states that basically, I mean, kids, if they didn't pray and kneel at the Church of Fauci for the last 2 years, you talking about feeling isolated. Yeah. I mean, it's just.
That is the big red flag.
Certainly, sure is. But one editorial I read, and of course I'm reading the editorial, but it was quotes of what the liberal attorney was saying. To me, it seemed like they were arguing like facts and circumstances of what went on versus, the law of freedom and liberty. To me,
yes, at one point
it didn't seem like it was a fair
Richard
argument.
Katsky was the guy's name, and at one point he said that it was dangerous for the students, that the students could become physically endangered. And what happened was, on one occasion, when he went out to pray by himself, it was also homecoming. And there was a bunch of people on the field afterwards for homecoming, and they tried to say the ruckus was caused by the prayer. The attorney for the coach came out in his rebuttal and said, hey, that had nothing to do with his prayer.
You know what? Just gave me another thought about this. What would the liberals say about? Would they go to the Supreme Court and argue that if say a player was not kneeling or not have his hand on his heart during the national anthem, doing maybe a BLM protest during the game,
right?
Would they, and maybe all of them were doing except for 3 or 4, would they come to the defense of the 3 or 4 that wasn't pressured into doing something?
Good question.
It's just, I'm really surprised it's before the Supreme Court. I'm surprised it got this far, really.
By the way, in another case that came out today, the Supreme Court issued an 8-1 decision saying that the residents of Puerto Rico are not entitled to Social Security disability benefits, that they actually side with Congress way back when, and said that if you're living in a territory of the United States, it doesn't entitle you to the rights of the citizens who live in the United States. And I thought, well, all Puerto Ricans have to do is go down and cross the border illegally, and then you can get all you want.
Yeah, that's right. Just go across to Rio Grande instead of the Caribbean.
We got to take a time out. Stay with us. More news and views coming up.
Reserve it, then ride home in it at Greenville Toyota. Camrys, Corollas, Tundra trucks, RAV4s, and more are on the way. Reserve yours before it's gone. Plus, get more for your trade. Reserve and ride today at Greenville Toyota.
Hey, we're at Maribella's in Greenville, the new location of Maribella's on Fire Tower Road. If you haven't been to this place yet, let me tell you, you are missing out. I want to introduce my friends from Maribella's. I've got Sal, Massimo, and Pietro here. These guys are awesome. Not only do they make great food, they do a lot of things for the community, which we're going to be talking about. But Sal, let's start with you. Let's talk about the new location of Maribella's on Fire Tower Road. I'm a regular here. I love it. You guys call it Old World Pizza. Tell us what's different about your pizza.
Well, we got 2 kinds of pizzas. We have the traditional, American style, and then we have the Old World Pizza, which is made with fresh mozzarella, and the way they do it in Italy.
Massimo, when you talk about doing this food right, it's authentic. And when I talk about authentic, you grew up in Italy, so you grew up with this food. You know how to make it.
Yeah, because we grew up in Italy, we know the ingredient, and everything we do from scratch. And the right ingredient it's been hard for us to bring over here. And now finally we can get the right ingredient to make a right pizza.
All right, now I'm going to talk to my friend Pietro here at Maribella's. He's got the Nino's shirt on today. We're going to talk about Nino's, which is another great dining experience, upscale dining experience, on another segment upcoming. But Pietro, let's talk about Maribella's. For people who've never been to Maribella's, what's the experience going to be like when they come here? Not only pizzas, but pastas, salads, sandwiches, you got it all.
Yes, we do. We have new sandwiches that we put in this new location, and we're going to spread it to the other locations.
The guys here at Maribella's have won national pizza competitions, so you know it's good. Thanks to Sal, Massimo, and Pietro. Folks, do yourself a favor. Come to the new Maribella's here on Fire Tower Road in Greenville, or Maribella's on Greenville Boulevard, or Maribella's in Washington on Carolina Avenue. Also, don't forget upscale dining at Nino's on Red Banks Road.
Reserve and ride your pre-owned vehicle at Greenville Toyota. Shop a huge selection of quality used cars, trucks, SUVs, even luxury models. All with no charge maintenance, plus a 100,000-mile used car warranty. Reserve and ride at Greenville Toyota.
For
We speak the language of news. Let us translate.
Our policies are working.
They told me to read this. I'm not allowed to go off script, or I will get in trouble.
When they talk,
there are still predictions.
How dare you ask me that? I am way smarter than you. I'm up here, you're down there.
We'll explain.
What unifies us is the
nonsense, unintelligible nonsense.
What happens next happens here with Tom and Benny on Talk 96.3 and 103.7.
All right, taking a quick look at your weather forecast. Clear skies tonight, a low around 63. Believe it or not, looking down the road, we're actually going to hit 60s again towards the end of the week. Tomorrow's going to be warm again, and in the afternoon, expect some thunder boomers to come in. Chance of rain tomorrow night is 70%. And it could get a little noisy and a little windy. Wednesday, some clouds in the morning give way to sunny skies, a high of 72. So the storms coming through tomorrow is going to lower the temperature from the 80s to the 70s. And Thursday's high is only going to be in the 60s. But all in all, I'm not going to complain about the warm weather. I love it. The Biden administration has been telling us continually about how Joe is doing everything to stop Vladimir Putin, his government officials and wealthy oligarchs, and we're slamming them. We're putting sanctions on them like you've never seen before ever. I mean, Biden has said this, that this is unprecedented what he's doing. According to the Wall Street Journal, Alina Kabaeva, I'm sure the accent is different, but yeah, I'm in the same zip code. She is Putin's mistress. And apparently he's fathered at least 3 children with this woman, according to the United States intelligence. The Biden administration has come out, and while they've sanctioned all kinds of oligarchs and Putin himself and people in his administration, they have come out and have refused to sanction this woman, his mistress. And the Biden administration's come out and said that, this could, as we try to get along with Putin, this could really, it might upset the relationships we have with Putin. He came out and said this. It's unbelievable. According to the Wall Street Journal, the Treasury and State Departments typically work together to prepare sanction packages incorporating intelligence and other information. The National Security Council is often has to sign off on the package before it's announced. The girlfriend of Putin, the mistress of Putin, the Treasury Department had prepared the sanctions against her, but the National Security Council made an 11th hour decision to pull her name from the list. As the Journal notes, U.S. officials debating the move fear that sanctioning Ms. Kabaeva would be deemed so personal a blow to Mr. Putin that it could further escalate tensions between Russia and the United States. How could it possibly get any worse? This is unbelievable. What horse's rear end at the White House made this decision?
Well, Joe Biden and Anthony Blinken's been together forever. And
speaking of horse's rear ends.
Yeah, and Anthony Blinken, he's got a history with Joe Biden. And Joe Biden seems to never be right on anything. So I don't know why it makes anyone feel comfortable to think. It's basically, Blinken is running.
When I saw Blinken and Austin was going over to Ukraine, I thought, oh, the poor Ukrainians.
Did you see, Austin's a big guy.
Yeah.
You see how big he looked towards Zelensky? Zelensky's a small guy. Yeah. But, I think Austin's like 6'5".
He looks like he's a towering guy.
He was. I don't necessarily agree with Austin with what he's been doing in the Biden administration, but Austin's a war hero, and he's a war-battled guy. He's not just a Pentagon office guy.
Interesting note, speaking of Vladimir Putin, New York Post is reporting that more and more people are thinking there's something health-wise wrong with Vladimir Putin. He went to a Russian Orthodox Church that is supporting what Putin is doing in Ukraine, by the way. But he went to a service at the Russian Orthodox Church, and they were saying he didn't look good. He looked like he had the shakes. Perhaps he was looking sickly because of fear that he might be struck by lightning being in a church. But and then last week there was video of him, and he was speaking with Sergei Shoigu, and who is one of his potentates over there. But when you looked at the video, Putin was holding a table. I mean, it wasn't just leaning on it. He was grasping this table hard and never, it was like a 7-minute video and never let go of the table.
Wow.
And people are speculating maybe he's got Parkinson's and that he didn't want to be seen with the shakes. So to avoid that, he was gripping the side of this table.
We actually, my wife and I had talked about when he hadn't made some appearances in the last few months, he definitely looked like he was heavier, but his face looked, and I apologize to my medical friends for a non-medical term, but his face looked puffy looking.
Yes, yeah.
And he looks like
he'd been on steroids or something.
Yeah, and also he had that, his skin tone just looked kind of yellow.
Yeah.
I think he's probably got some health issues going on.
Well, yeah. Wow. So we've got Putin over there, and we've got Biden over here.
And a guy that's not you're assuming he's not in his mental state. You mentioned, the support of the Russian Orthodox Church, and I don't know. They may support what he is telling them, but they're not getting the truth. No one in Russia gets the truth.
No.
I saw that in my time there reading the papers. I mean, they get fed more lies. They don't. They don't.
Even more than we get.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe, but even more than we get. Hey, we got to take another time out. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Fantastic Sam's Cut and Color is hiring stylists. If you're driven, creative, and ready to make an impact, then we're looking for you. We offer competitive salaries, flexible schedules, and professional training with the newest technologies and equipment in the industry. Stop by your local Fantastic Sam's today and show us what you've got. Apply at locations in Goldsboro, Kinston, Greenville, New Bern, Morehead City, Jacksonville, and Calabash. Fantastic Sam's, real salon experience, real savings, real fantastic.
Well, folks, it's only 8 a.m. and it's going to be another hot one. Today's high is 85 degrees with lows ranging in the upper 50s. Tomorrow's more of the same, plus some light wind coming in from the northeast. Coming up at 8:30, Paul's got an exclusive
Babe, it's 8 a.m.
Fried chicken, better with Pepsi.
It's going to change. I promise you. As I stand here, it will change. Okay, and when it does, that stadium, it's going to be rocking, and heaven help whoever walks in there to play us. And I can promise you, there will be no quarter, ever.
The best burgers around. Everyone loves a thick, juicy, and fresh burger. Tiebreakers in Greenville, plus the all-new Tiebreakers in Winterville. Do real burgers better than anybody. So don't just go to any burger-themed restaurant chain. It's time to break the chain and eat local. Tiebreakers, real burgers at its best.
Everybody loves burgers. Air Service is back at Pitt Greenville Airport, offering safe, clean facilities and flights from American Airlines. That means the short commute, quicker lines, and better prices that get you where you're going fast and easy. See it for yourself. There's great things inside at Pitt Greenville Airport.
This is your Drive at 5 and ENC with Tom Lamprecht. Welcome back to News and Views on Talk 96.3 and 103.7.
Welcome back. Benny Hardy here to take you to the top of the hour. Tom Lamprecht had to run out to a baseball game today. Last week, we talked about Joe Biden and what I call the Biden crime family, or as someone's calling Biden Inc., and talked about the mysterious wealth that he created in his days ending after the Obama administration, going into just prior to running for president in 2020. And we went into some details of that, and it looks like every day, drip, drip, more information comes out from the emails and the laptop information from Hunter Biden, and more of the news media actually doing their jobs and investigating things that just make you go, what's up? Over the weekend, the New York Post had a detailed article by John Levine and Miranda Devine that really, after scrutinizing the White House logs during the Obama administration of people visiting the White House and visiting Joe Biden, it makes some of the questions that Republicans have been raising for 2 years, 3 years, seem to be there's some there. As everyone remembers, during the presidential election and just prior to 2020, even as far back as 19, when President Biden was asked about his relationship with Hunter and his business dealings, he's made a quote, I have never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings, he said in 2019. Well, to his defense, I can certainly believe Joe Biden may not remember that he spoke to his son about his business dealings, but those things were suspicious saying that. But I have this New York Post article this weekend. They go on to say Hunter Biden's closest business partner made at least 19 visits to the White House and other official locations between 2009 and 2015, including a sit-down with then Vice President Joe Biden in the West Wing. Now, this is a guy, Eric Schwerin, that was one of his Hunter Biden's investment fund partners with Rosemont Seneca, one of his closest investment partners. And Rosemont Seneca is the ones that had transactions with the Chinese, with Russia, actually with Ukraine and other foreign entities, people, members of the Chinese Communist Party. And Mr. Schwerin, met with Joe Biden and Joe Biden's staff and Jill Biden 19 times during that time, when the president said he did not, and he didn't have any knowledge of any business dealings. They go on to say that the emails and the hard drive shows that he was also involved in Joe Biden's personal taxes. Last week, we talked about Joe Biden's personal taxes and the lack of transparency, although the White House claims they are transparent with Joe Biden's taxes. The actual corporations and the source of the revenue that's funding Joe Biden's lifestyle has not been so transparent. Also, in October of 2009, just months after Hunter co-founded Rosemont Seneca, Schwerin met with Evan Ryan, Vice President Biden's assistant for intergovernmental affairs. While working in the halls with Ryan, Ryan acted as a conduit for Hunter Biden and his cronies, the emails on the hard drive show. Now, interestingly enough, who was Ryan? Ryan went on to marry Anthony Blinken, which was a meeting we just talked about. Anthony Blinken has been Joe Biden's Secretary of State now, but has been with Joe Biden for years on foreign policy issues. She actually married Anthony Blinken. So, I mean, the way this works is, everybody's involved in this, it seems like. There's also one email back in 2010 that Ryan received a request from Chris Sloan, Director of Government Relations for the International Union of Partners, advocating that union lawyer Craig Becker be nominated to the National Labor Relations Board. Sloan asked Vice President to press Obama on the issue, and Hunter was cover copied on the email. So here we go, mixing business dealings and governmental affairs. Well, guess what? Obama named Becker to the job through a recess appointment a month later, and at the time Republicans, were all over this, but again, the news media did not say anything about it. Also, in some of the emails between Schwerin and Joe Biden's office, it's in July 6, 2010, an email titled JRB Future Memo. Schwerin said he was in touch with the vice president about personal financial matters and was eager to start discussions with him about how to cash in once he left office. Well, maybe he cashed in while in office, and maybe he cashed in through the Biden family with Hunter's involvement. Because I said last week, and we've said before, Joe Biden, I looked at Joe Biden's finances when he was the nominee for vice president with Barack Obama. And Joe Biden essentially had no net worth. His net worth was essentially the present value of his retirement fund with the government and his wife's retirement fund with her government job. And he basically had no other assets. But he lived a lifestyle that with absolutely no way could be supported the amount of income he had each year. Mortgage to the hilt. But Hunter had all these business dealings going on, and they ramped up once Joe Biden became a vice president because, let's face it, you can be a senator for 25, 30 years, but you're one person away from the most powerful person in the world. As vice president, you have a lot more influence than any other position. And that's when Joe Biden's net worth skyrocketed, his income skyrocketed. And I'm not buying it happened from the sale of books that barely could be sold. I mean, thousands of copies sold. The numbers just don't add up. And now that this information is coming out from the laptop and the news media is actually doing their jobs where they just ignored it 2 years ago, now it's going to be interesting as we get to the midterms, and if the poll numbers keep going down and we look at 2024 and the Democrats think there's no hope, then maybe all of a sudden there will be a lot more stories about this. And hey, it's the New York Post this weekend, but there were several other sources that are not just Fox News and conservative-leaning outlets. There was several articles over the weekend about the same thing. So I think we might be seeing more as we come down the road. But you know what? The mainstream media in the top 3 or 4 networks still talk about Trump and still talk about what's going on in New York with his tax returns. They still will ignore the fact that it's been proven over and over and over again that the Russian collusion issue was a non-issue. It was a made-up issue. Now John Durham is on to Hillary Clinton's campaign and won't let them up. So I think as we roll into the midterms, I think you're going to see these stories get legs, and you'll be hearing a lot more of things that we have been talking about for 2 years. And so if you want to talk about that, feel free to call in 561-8255. I think we've got Tom from Bellhaven on. Go ahead, Tom.
Hey, guys. How y'all doing today?
Hey, Tom. How are you?
Doing fine. I got to thinking about something the other day, and, we spank our children. We don't beat our children. We spank our children to teach them that what they've done is wrong. And you've got what's going on with the left losing like they are, because losing people, losing votes, but they're still doing the same thing. They're not backing off. And that tells me right there, hey, we know how to cheat. We're going to cheat again. We don't have to stop doing this because we'll still be able to do it.
Yeah,
it's getting ridiculous.
I don't disagree. At some point, your analogy with a child's the same thing, and of course it's also like an employee told me one time. An employee told me, he said, "Hey, I'm going to be as lazy as you let me get away with," and it's just kind of human nature. If you keep getting away with this stuff and not held accountable, what's to stop you? And so far, nothing has stopped them so far, and it looks like maybe the only thing that will stop them if the poll numbers get so bad and the midterms are just a disaster, then all of a sudden, to save face, the mainstream media and maybe at the direction of the DNC say, look, Biden's our fall guy. The numbers look bad. The poll numbers look bad. I mean, what can he point to? I mean, what can he hang his hat on that is success in his first 2 years in office?
And I agree with you there. And the other thing I wanted to bring up was you were talking earlier about Putin's mistress and not wanting to put those sanctions against him. But I was trying to imagine what it would be like if Kamala Harris was describing this situation, and I could just hear her saying, "Well, you have Mrs. Putin, and she's a large woman, and then you have the mistress, and she's a smaller woman, and basically that is just wrong." And it just pictured how she would explain this would just be so great. I wish somebody would do it.
Well, Tom, last week when I was talking about Biden's tax returns and the tax returns being released for Biden and Harris, I didn't spend a lot of time on Harris because basically I told myself, you know what, when you can get up in front of the camera and get up in front of people and make a speech and sound like you're not giving a book report for middle school, I'll take your tax return and everything else you do more serious, but right now you're not a story.
Well, yeah, you're exactly right. And talking down to us,
I think we lost Tom there. Yeah, that sounded like a signal loss. Well, that was a good call, Tom. We appreciate the call in, and you know what, we will be back. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we will talk about those falling poll numbers with Biden and what it may mean for the midterm elections. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Fantastic Sam's Cut and Color is hiring stylists. If you're driven, creative, and ready to make an impact, then we're looking for you. We offer competitive salaries, flexible schedules, and professional training with the newest technologies and equipment in the industry. Stop by your local Fantastic Sam's today and show us what you've got. Apply at locations in Goldsboro, Kinston, Greenville, New Bern, Morehead City, Jacksonville, and Calabash. Fantastic Sam's, real salon experience, real savings, real fantastic.
Well, folks, it's only 8 a.m. and it's going to be another hot one. Today's high is 85 degrees with lows ranging in the upper 50s. Tomorrow's more of the same, plus some light wind coming in from the northeast. Coming up at 8:30, Paul's got an exclusive
Babe,
heartwarming
it's
story.
8 a.m.
Fried chicken, better with Pepsi.
Yeah, it's going to change. I promise you. As I stand here, it will change. Okay, and when it does, that stadium, it's going to be rocking, and heaven help whoever walks in there to play us. And I can promise you, there will be no quarter, ever.
The best burgers around. Everyone loves a thick, juicy, and fresh burger. Tiebreakers in Greenville, plus the all-new Tiebreakers in Winterville. Do real burgers better than anybody. So don't just go to any burger-themed restaurant chain. It's time to break the chain and eat local. Tiebreakers, real burgers at its best.
Everybody loves burgers. Air Service is back at Pitt Greenville Airport, offering safe, clean facilities and flights from American Airlines. That means the short commute, quicker lines, and better prices that get you where you're going fast and easy. See it for yourself. There's great things inside at Pitt Greenville Airport.
Beautiful day, this neighborhood. A beautiful day for a neighbor.
First thing you should do after work.
I turn on the radio.
Check in with Tom and Benny.
Gotta know what's happening in my city.
What's going on in my backyard.
Things that are happening locally.
I like the local news.
Things that I don't hear everywhere else.
For the local news you want.
Kept me informed for all of the local stuff, you know. It let me know what was going on in the local community.
Eastern Carolina's news source is news and views on Talk 96.3 and 103.7.
Welcome back on Monday edition of News and Views here on April 25th, 2022. When we left, we talked about Biden's falling poll numbers, and last week the more just disastrous poll numbers for President Biden. That was the lowest had been for any president since Jimmy Carter. There was one time that Trump had some numbers as low, but of course at that time during Trump, he had all the media against him, so it's kind of hard to compare apples to apples. But these are the worst numbers forever since Jimmy Carter, and having the mainstream media in your court tells me they're probably really worse than that. New York Times columnist Charles Blow claimed that he was truly shocked by the poll that showed President Biden with a 33% approval rating. And it just made me think, and I saw an article in the Federalist by Nathaniel Blake saying, how could anybody be shocked with what's going on with the economy? And it's just and with what's happening at the border and inflation, and people that are shocked by it have got to be just, liberals or people that live in the Washington or big metro city bubble or mainstream media bubble. I don't know how they don't understand what's going on, because I got a feeling that America, the numbers are probably worse than that. Nathaniel Blake goes on to talk about that, in that Blow's article in the New York Times, he blames Biden for being too much of a decent man. He was too sober and straightforward rather than a showman. And Nathaniel Blake brings up a good point, and the same thing that I noticed. I mean, Joe Biden, the only reason Joe Biden is not a showman right now is because he don't have the mental capabilities to be a showman. He's been a blowhard bloviator his entire time in Washington, always seeming to be the smart, acting like he was the smartest guy in the room. And he's been nothing but a showman. His point of Biden being too much of a decent man is just laughable, actually. I can't believe he can say that. It's just that, again, another case where people just don't get it in Washington and also in the mainstream media. We turn away from Biden right quick. I thought a funny story out of Town Hall today. A Florida sheriff says a homeowner should shoot burglars to save taxpayer dollars. County sheriff said Thursday that homeowners should use lethal force during break-ins to save taxpayers' money. The sheriff's remark came after a man from Milton, Florida, was arrested last week following a burglary spree in Pace, Florida. The guy, 32 years old, broke into multiple homes, and the county sheriff says Harris broke into at least 4 homes and has active warrants for his violation on probation. So Florida sheriff says it's good for saving taxpayer dollars. I think that sheriff might could win some elections in North Carolina, because I think people with the crime that's been going on for the last 2 or 3 years, and certainly ramped up during Joe Biden's time, I think there'd probably be an awful lot of people that would probably agree with them. And hey, at this time when you have so many Democrats calling for defunding the police, you got to protect yourself, and a person has the right to protect herself. They shouldn't take the matters in their own hands, should take the law in their own hands, but they need to protect themselves at all times, and that's why I'm a Second Amendment advocate and always have been. As we close out today, I wanted to finish off on a positive note. This weekend, I traveled to Virginia to see one of my boys in school, and little did I know I would meet a couple of people that some would say are somewhat famous in their professions and former professional experiences. But more importantly, it would be a meeting of someone few know outside of this local town that have a tremendous impact on me. I met a ray of sunshine that I will not name as having a profound impact on the lives of young men and their families. She was doing so simply because of her love of her fellow man and the fact that she believed she was called by God to do so. She followed this calling after she experienced extreme tragedy and loss of a loved one in her life. This weekend reminded me of the important advice I received from a friend years ago when he experienced tragedy and the loss of someone dear to him, advice that I have shared with many over the years. He told me to stop praying for outcomes, but to pray to God for strength to deal with our daily challenges, losses, and grief. This weekend was an important reminder to me of the importance for praying for strength and direction instead of our own desired outcome. That ray of sunshine I met this weekend has done so, and young men and their families are benefiting from her strength and following God's calling. This weekend, we always meet people as we go about our daily lives, but you just always meet someone from time to time that just has a profound impact on you. And I'm sure I will experience this person again as I go up to this area. But she made a big impact on me this weekend, and it just made me to stop and reflect. And we all need to think about it when we have a times when we want things to happen and they don't happen. Maybe we just need to pray for the strength, for direction when they don't, and we experience tough times. Tom and I will be back tomorrow for a little bit of news and a lot of views and the happenings of the day. But as we leave here today, just remember, as we come to the midterm elections and here in the primaries the next few months, just remember that God's in control, that we're not in control, and whatever he plans to do, he has a plan. We may not understand it, but he has a plan, and we just need to focus on serving him and focusing on doing what his will is and adapting to his will. And if he calls us to do something, follow his lead, just like that person I met this weekend. But we will be back tomorrow, same time, for your drive home. Benny Hardy in today, finishing for Tom Lampert. Tom and I will see you tomorrow. Have a good evening, everybody.
What do you see when you imagine life on the coast? Is it salty?
All right.
Or sweet? Is it refined? Or a bit wild? Perhaps it's the perfect combination of everything you ever dreamed of. This is the very best of the best of living on the coast. ProCoast.
Well, folks, it's only 8 a.m. and it's going to be another hot one. Today's high is 85 degrees with lows ranging in the upper 50s. Tomorrow's more of the same, plus some light wind coming in from the northeast. Coming up at 8:30, Paul's got an exclusive
Babe,
heartwarming
it's
story.
8 a.m.
Fried chicken, better with Pepsi.
And we're on location at one of my favorite places in the whole planet because this is some of the best food you're ever going to eat in your life. We are at Nino's on Red Banks Road in Greenville. It's one of my hangouts. It's one of the places that I love. I got my friend Pietro Pasalacqua. How'd I do?
You did great.
Let's talk about the food. What makes this place? I know it's special Italian from authentic Italians, but tell us why it's so special.
Because everything we do, it's really what we came up on the menu from what we did at home, from my grandparents, my parents. So it's exactly what we eat at home, and that's the way we cook. That's why it's special.
And the atmosphere in this place is special also. From the bar to the two dining areas. You got two different dining areas, and now the weather's nice, so there's going to be a lot of folks that want to eat outside.
Yeah, we have two rooms. One room is designed a little different. We're also working on the patio to make it more attractive and more useful in the summer with a cocktail service. And we're always improving our services.
And, of course, my friends here, my buddy, Chef Massimo, who I love, and Sal and Pietro, you guys do a great job here. Not just Italian, but I had a great pork chop here the other night. You got great steaks, too.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we're also adding filet mignon in the future on our menu. And Massimo is coming out with a really good side dishes for it. And so we're really excited to come out with new meats and fish dishes.
All right, Nino's on Red Banks Road in Greenville. Same people that give you Marabello's and the great pizza that you get at Marabello's, but this is fine dining at Nino's. If you haven't been here, you don't know what you're missing. Come see him at Nino's on Red Banks Road. And Pietro, what is that famous saying about Nino's?
The food that you enjoy with people that you love.